This happened quite a few years back when I was around 14 years old. Let me just preface by saying that I had previously been told by my best friend Jenna that her neighbor had some entirely creepy tendencies. I slept over at her place a lot, but never encountered her creepy neighbor. This guy was married and had children, and his house was directly behind Jenna's place. There was a wooden fence in her backyard that separated the neighbor's backyard and theirs. Jenna had a deck, and the stairs were a few feet off from the house, so you could fit a fairly small person in between the deck stairs and the house. You could see into the neighbor's backyard if you were standing on the deck, but not if you were on the grass. With that understood, we had a half day at school, so I went back to Jenna's place. I wasn't really allowed over that day, but since we were inseparable, it didn't really matter to us, and we weren't expecting her mom to be home from work for a good few hours anyway. So we were having fun and in good spirits when her mom did end up coming home early. So Jenna and I scrambled to the backyard so her mom wouldn't see me, so as not to get in trouble. We went outside and wedged ourselves in between the stairs and house so her mom wouldn't hear the fence gate open, as it made a lot of noise whenever it was opened. We waited for a couple of minutes until we started hearing shuffling in her neighbor's backyard. It was her neighbor. We could faintly see him through the cracks of the wood, and it looked like he was maybe putting out his recycling or garbage. Only that's not what her neighbor was doing. Instead, he was making his way onto the bin and poking his head over the fence to look into their windows. From the backyard, you could see him looking into Jenna's mom's window, the bathroom, and into parts of the kitchen. We saw him, but he didn't see us. We were shaking and holding on to each other for dear life as we watched her neighbor stand upright on the bin to get a better view into the windows. He kept shifting from bin to get better angles into what we assumed later on was Jenna's mom's room, since she just got back from work, and possibly into the bathroom. This went on for 5 to 10 minutes or so, us trembling and trying not to move or make a noise, while her creepy neighbor just kept trying to look into Jenna's house. He eventually got back down and went into his house, like nothing had happened, while Jenna and I hopped her fence gate soon after. A few weeks later, we had another incident wherein Jenna's sister took a shower late at night and went to her room. Her blinds were open. It was dark outside. There was a tree that sat in their front yard, and it was snowing pretty heavily that night. She called us on her phone, sounding freaked out, saying she saw someone in the trees and couldn't see them anymore. We told her to turn her lights off, while Jenna and I did the same in her room. We peeked out the window but couldn't see anything. We went to her sister's room and asked what happened. She was convinced she saw someone in the tree who she believed was their neighbor. So Jenna and I went out front to investigate. By that time, he was gone. But we did find fresh shoe prints in the snow that went from the neighbor's front yard to the tree, then right up to Jenna's sister's window, before it trailed off back to the neighbor's house. Suffice to say, creepy neighbor, let's not meet again. Around 10 to 12 years ago, in England, I lived in a little 2-bedroom house on a long road. It is a terraced house on a long strip of other terraced houses. Back in the day, all the attics were joined and you could literally travel through them. Years later, they realized that this was not a good idea. Fires spreading, burglars, etc. And so all the attics were bricked up so each house was secure. One night, I was soaking in the bath when I heard a noise above me. Thinking it may be an animal or something, I just ignored it. This went on for a few weeks only, until it was getting to the point where I could only hear the noise when I was in the bath or shower or getting changed. I got a friend to check the attic, and he told me he didn't see anything. He really just stuck his head inside, which just confirmed my animal's story. Not much happened after that for about a month or two, when one night when I was alone, I was getting ready to take a shower as I was heading out with friends. I heard the same noise above when all of a sudden the dog started going crazy, barking and looking directly above me. Clearly, I was freaked out and decided to get ready at a friend's house. The next day, I was outside my house when the neighbor shouted at me. Now, my neighbor is creepy as hell. Small, stinky, strange looking with a hint of crazy in his eyes. He asked if I was okay. Being polite and trying to show him I'm not bothered, I say yes and went about my business. Just as I got to my door, he asked me if I got to my friends okay. At first, without thinking, I said yes, thank you, smiled and waved goodbye. When I got inside, though, I realized that he would not know I was with a friend unless he heard me on the phone, and as I was so creeped out the night before, I was practically whispering to my friend. Anyway, I rang family members, told my dad, and they all came around. They turned the lights on in the bathroom, but they kept all the other lights off, opened the attic door, and sure enough, you could see 2 lights shining through the top of the attic. 2 tiny holes, little holes. My bathroom ceiling was quite dark, so I never even noticed them. My dad went in. He was gone a while, but when he returned, he was blazing angry. He ignored everyone and walked straight outside to the neighbor's house. We could hear him shouting for the neighbor to open the door, but he was not home. I asked my cousin to go up and check it out. When he came back down from the attic, he told me that the wall separating the attics had been knocked through. Most of the brickwork was on my side, so it was knocked through from the other side. We called the police, but they told us there was no proof he'd done anything. The neighbor told the police he never used the attic, and the previous tenants must be to blame. Clearly, he was to blame. Dirty old pervert. I don't think I've ever been so disturbed knowing that my neighbor, this creepy perv, had been watching me for all that time. I never stayed in that house again. This happened years ago, when I was a sophomore in high school. My high school was across the street from my neighborhood, so I would walk to and from school. I live in the very back of the neighborhood, and my house is on the corner. We'll say that the street in front of my house was Windsor, and the street to the right of it that I walked straight home on was called Lark. So I'm walking down Lark, and I'm at the point where I'm almost at my backyard. But I haven't turned onto Windsor yet to get to the front of my house. Across the street, there's one of my neighbors, an older man, getting out of his car. He calls to me and asks if I can help to get her out of the car as he's unable to lift her. I've never talked to this neighbor before, and my parents weren't friends with him. But he lived there for a while, so I thought, sure, let me help him get his granddaughter out of the car. If he needed to lift someone, I thought it was a little kid in a car seat. I cross over to the other side of Lark and go to the passenger side where I see an old woman. I was surprised as, again, I thought it would be a little kid. But I do help the old woman out of the car and kind of hand her off to the older man. Then he asks if I can help her inside. I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable since I don't really know him, but I don't want to seem like a rude little snot of a teenager, so I said sure. I helped him bring her inside. Once inside, he asked me where I live, and I tell him I'm the house on the corner with my parents. I can't remember what happened to make them start arguing, but before I know it, this man is screaming at his wife, or mother, I honestly don't know. And she's crying out, "Stop yelling at me," and begins to collapse. I honestly had to hold her up. So freaking bizarre, and I honestly thought he might just lose it and hit her. I wish I could remember what made them start shouting at each other, but I just remember him screaming and me freaking out inside. I'm thinking, why would you lose it like this in front of a total stranger? I couldn't help but wonder what he was like when people weren't there. He then asks if I babysit and would I be willing to come over one night and stay to watch this woman. I'm super uncomfortable at this point and just want to leave, so I told him I would have to ask my parents. He asks me to write down my phone number on a piece of paper. I write down my home phone number, and I leave. It takes me a whole 30 seconds to get home, but when I told my mom what happened, she was furious. She couldn't believe I would just go in a total stranger's house and told me something could have happened. I hadn't even thought of that. I was so worried about seeming rude to an older neighbor that I went along with everything, even though I was really uncomfortable. I honestly don't know what I would have done had something really bad happened. Honestly, I'm pretty lucky it was just uncomfortable and bizarre. He still lives in that house, although I rarely see him. Sometimes I see him getting his mail. I've never interacted with him ever again, and I've never seen the woman. So, creepy neighbor, let's continue to not meet. To start things off, I live in Egypt, doesn't matter where. But my environment is completely different from y'all, so let's give it a shot. This happened when I was 17 years old. I would occasionally visit my old grandma. She lives in an old apartment building. Don't really know what it's called. It's just like old from the 50s, so most people living there are just grandparents, maybe with their older kids. I know the place very well. It's not creepy. I'm used to going up these stairs since I was a little kid, so it was okay. So one day, my dad told me that she needed pills from the pharmacy, and it was around 10:30 p.m. So normally I walk to my grandma's. It's about a 15-minute walk. She lives nearby. Normally at that time in September, it's the school season, so people go to bed really early, and the roads are a little empty at times. Anyways, I went to the building, which has the stairs inside. You only have access to the apartment's doors where there's no windows and that sort of thing, so it can be dark. I went in and closed the door behind me. There's a key which only people who live there have. They normally close that front door at 10. My dad has a copy that he gave to me, and I went inside. At that time, the stairs were pitch black. I don't know why lamps were off because, as I said, there's no windows, so not even a little light. But I thought, let's just get this over with. I'll deliver the medicine and get on with my life. I picked up my phone, turned the flashlight on, and I went up. She lives on the 6th floor, and there's no elevator. Walking through the 3rd floor, something catches my eye, and I see a shadow of someone standing with their door open, with little light coming from the inside. I say hello, pointing my flashlight toward the shadow, and I see an old woman. She's short. I didn't get scared at first, assuming it's just an old woman and not a darn ghost. I asked her to turn on the lights, please. Every floor has a lamp in the middle of the ceiling. She didn't say anything, but she turned it on. An old yellow lamp. I said thanks, but she was still standing there and not saying anything. I decided to get on my way up to my grandma's when she suddenly said in Arabic, but I translate, "Why don't you come in? I made some tea." I look at her and kind of get spooked. Her voice was so high-pitched. Actually, I prayed she wouldn't say anything more to me. She looked so pale, and her skin marks were excessive, like a very, very old lady. She looked scary to me. But I said, thank you, I gotta go to my grandma's. She needs something, maybe next time. But she insisted. She started grabbing my arm, forcefully. She felt unnaturally strong and wouldn't let go. I was shocked at this instant. Her grip was so tight, as if she planned on never letting go. I could feel her pulling me, dragging me, inch by inch closer to being in her apartment. When I looked past her, inside her place, I noticed it's very dark, pitch black, and I don't even know what's going on. I say thanks, but can I please go? I have to go. I tried very hard not to push her away, but I had to, and she kept dragging me through the doorway. I pushed her hands away, hard, as she was too close to pulling me inside. But she said something. "Come on, Asser. You're a son of X, right?" My mom's name. Looking very angry after I pushed her hands off me, but I was puzzled. How is it that she knows my mother's name? I was very surprised, but I ran my way up to my grandma's and checked on her for like 30 minutes. I was legitimately shaking after what happened. I didn't ask my grandma about her strange neighbor, or even mention her. But when I went back downstairs, she wasn't there. When I walked down the streets, I looked up. She was waving at me through the old window of her apartment. This woman gave me chills. Even after all these years, I didn't see her ever again. And her door, I never saw it being opened when I went to visit my grandma's again. I'm really glad I didn't go inside with this woman. God only knows what's inside. But that was it. So, old woman, let's not meet again. I've recently moved to a new area due to my work, and it's far away from my family and friends. It's a weird cul-de-sac area. I'm currently working on finding friends here, but I work Monday through Friday and go visit my parents on the weekends, so it's pretty hectic. I start at 7 a.m. and finish around 6:30 or 7 at night, so you can imagine that when I get home, I just want to eat and go to sleep. One day, I come home and there's an old couple standing outside my door. They introduce themselves as the couple that lives directly opposite my house and even hand me some home-cooked dinner. I say thank you and mention that I would invite them in, but there's still a lot of boxes everywhere and I was quite embarrassed. I say I've moved to a new city on my own for work. We have small talk for a few more seconds and I'm soon inside my house. I'm so tired, I honestly put the food that they have given me in the fridge and think I'll just head straight to bed. In the morning, I see the food that they've given me is half eaten and now in the sink. I must have been way too tired last night to remember eating this. The next night, I'm coming home from work and see the old lady waving at me from her kitchen window. I vaguely wave back and head inside. Nothing else happens that night. The next night, I've had the worst day at work. I had to stay behind work half an hour over due to a very unhappy customer, and I've been craving my bed all day. I pull up outside my house and see the old couple standing outside their house. Are they keeping a record of what times I come home? Starting to wonder. I'm honestly not in the mood for creepy-ass neighbors and making small talk again. I didn't know these people, and I don't really understand why they're trying so hard to socialize with me. Plus, the day I've had, I'm not in the best of moods. I brace myself for the lame conversation that I'm about to have. Getting out of my car, I just wave generally in their direction and start fumbling in my purse to find the keys to my front door. "Excuse me, miss, come over for some dinner? You look so tired," the old lady's saying to me. I vaguely say something about me being too tired while generally getting annoyed. They wouldn't hold up. I open my door and I'm just about to step into it. The old guy comes across the road now and even places his hand on my arm, looks me dead in my eyes and says something cheery about how his wife makes the best pie. Okay, whatever. I thought I'd go over for a cup of tea and some pie and nicely try and explain to them that I've had a really crappy day and that I really should be heading off. Hopefully they'll take the hint. After shutting my door and stepping into their house, the old guy slams the door shut and locks it. They both proceed to tell me that at around 7:30, they were looking up the windows for me to give me some chicken stir fry that they had cooked and saved for me that night. They both clearly saw a man standing in my bedroom. They could see him through the window walk downstairs and could see him in the living room and walk into the kitchen. They then told me that they saw my car coming into the cul-de-sac and saw him rush back past the living room window and obviously up the stairs. They had called the police and had tried to stop me from entering my house. Whoever it was clearly upstairs hiding somewhere. My heart fell. I felt dizzy. I glanced in my bedroom window expecting to see someone there, but nothing was there. Just the curtains wide open. The police turned up shortly after, and I had to wait outside while they searched the house. In the crawl space Right outside my bedroom door, they had found a homeless man curled up. He'd been living there for the last 2-ish weeks, and according to him, he snuck in when the moving packers had left the door open while struggling with something. He'd been in the house, watching me while I'd been asleep, and would come out while I was at work and away for the weekends. Just recently, about 5 months ago, my family moved into the house we're in right now, after doing renovations on it for 2 to 3 years straight. The house is in a low middle class neighborhood and needed a lot of work. After finally finishing it, we moved in ASAP and got settled. It's very cozy and the neighbors are super nice. However, after about a week or two of being in the house, at about 5 in the morning, I woke up and decided to get a glass of water before getting ready for school. To my surprise, I looked out of the kitchen window into the front yard and saw a man walking back and forth under the streetlight. Creepy as hell, yeah, but after about only a few seconds of watching him, he looked up and continued down the road. Didn't think much of it at this point. May have been someone walking home or to another location, so I dropped it and didn't tell my parents or friends or anything. Fast forward to the end of June, I woke up at about 3 in the morning to get my dogs going absolutely ballistic. I scrambled to get them to calm down since I didn't want my mom and dad to wake up and get mad about it. However, I looked out the window and I noticed the same damn dude standing there under the streetlight, this time staring at or into our house. This unnerved me greatly, and I turned the lights on, and almost immediately the dude walked away. My dogs finally chilled out, and I woke up my dad and told him about it. My dad didn't seem too concerned and didn't worry too much, and told me not to worry, but let him know if I saw him again. I agreed to this and went back to bed. About a week ago, I was unloading the storage unit pod in our backyard. I was home alone, and it was pretty late. However, I wanted to retrieve my guitar case before I lent my guitar to a friend. My dogs started barking like crazy, and I immediately went to check what they were barking at. And lo and behold, there's that dude again, in the same spot, staring at or into our house. I had 3 choices: call the cops, call my dad, or be the tough guy. Well, my dumbass chose C. I grabbed a baseball bat from my room and walked outside. The moment I opened the door, he began to walk away. I screamed at him, "Hey, yo, get back here." And in my response, he ran. Once my folks got home, I had a major earful, and rightfully so. My mom and dad called the cops, and the cops did the best they could with what little they had. They simply told us to call again if anything else happened and went on their way. Now, last night, I was getting home with my dad, mom, and sister after a night with some family friends. As we pulled into our driveway, there he was. However, this time, he was out in our yard. The moment the headlights shined on him, he ran down the road. My dad cursed, parked the car, got out with his gun, and stared at the guy as he ran away. My sister, mom, and I went inside immediately to call the cops. We don't know what happened after we went inside, but according to my dad, the man turned around and stared at him back for a while before running off again. I don't know if this guy will be back or how long he's been doing this. I hope nothing spirals out of control. But creepy guy in my neighborhood, for the love of all that is holy, let's not meet.